Hello there, how you doing? My name is Mukhtar. Today I'm going to be talking about how to survive a toxic workplace. Being in a toxic environment can be very challenging, it can be very stressful, and a lot of our time is actually spent at work, a significant amount of time. And if you are working in a toxic environment, that will more than likely spill over into your personal life. I've been in situations where people just write you off before they get to know you or what you're capable of delivering. It doesn't quite matter what you do, they would find it difficult to see the good in what you've done. You can move a mountain and they will still complain.
I think you left some crumbs behind.
What do you mean, what crumbs? Breadcrumbs?
No, mountain crumbs.
I literally just moved the mountain. Toxic work environments are quite common. This article on Inc. talks about a study of 40,000 employees at 125 companies. And here are some stats. 83% of employees would not report harassment if they saw it. 41% of employees aren't confident that if they made a harassment complaint, their management will take it seriously. Only 20% of employees think managers are aware of how their power influences workplace interactions. So toxic workplaces are quite common. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 12 things that you can possibly do to help you survive that toxic workplace. First things first, get help. If you find yourself in a toxic workplace, get help as soon as possible if you have access to help. Even if you feel like you're tough, you've weathered storms before, get help if you have access to, because you don't know the full extent to which that toxic environment is affecting you, your mental health, your physical health, even your relationships. Many companies have this EAP program, the Employee Assistance Program, and usually you can get access to a lot of counselors and it's usually free. So if you have access to a mental health professional, I highly recommend that you take advantage of that. The second tip is to remember that it is a choice. It is a choice to work in a toxic work environment. And hear me out. You might feel like you don't have a choice. I have to go to work. I have all these responsibilities. I haven't found a better job yet. That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is I choose to go to work despite the toxic situation. I feel like the latter, the second way of looking at it, is a more empowering way. And it doesn't make you feel as hopeless. You don't want to be in a hopeless state of mind. It makes your situation a bit more dangerous, I think, which is why I prefer to adopt the mindset that I choose to go to work despite the challenging circumstances. So remember to adopt the mindset that it is my choice. The next tip is to design your environment. Design your environment to counter the negativity around you. Quick story, the beautiful country of Kenya had an issue with road safety like many countries do. There were lots of road accidents, and two professors from Georgetown University decided to try something out. They focused on minibuses that were used to transport people from place to place. The drivers of these minibuses had a notorious reputation for reckless driving, and the professors decided to do something simple but yet genius. They decided to put signs in some of these buses, and these signs encourage the passengers to speak up, to be assertive when they saw that their drivers were driving recklessly. And the results? Check this out. Insurance claims from accidents dropped by 50 to 66%. Insurance claims from injury or death fell by 60%. So think about that. People literally saved their own lives because of signs that were put in their buses. Okay, so I'm not encouraging you to go yell at your boss. The point I'm trying to make is that signs, visual signs, are very powerful tools, and you can use them to counteract the negativity in your environment. Maybe you can have signs that remind you to be positive, to stay calm, that remind you of your dreams that are bigger than the toxic temporary work environment that you're in. And you can have these signs in places that you frequently look at, like your phones, your desktop background, on your wall. Just put it in places that you know that you would look at regularly. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and feel free to share this video so that other people can benefit. The next tip is to be aware of your triggers. In a toxic work environment, it's not an ideal atmosphere to be in. So you are more likely to be triggered in a toxic work environment. So be aware of those things that really get under your skin. Maybe, for example, it's a passive aggressive move. Somebody makes a snide comment, a sarcastic comment, and that really gets under your skin. So you want to be aware of those potential landmines so that you can plan on how you're going to navigate that situation when you're faced with that situation. The last thing that you want to do is to lose control in a toxic work environment where you know that people don't have your best interests at heart. The next tip is to practice self-care, and you want to do this religiously. You want to be consistent in doing something that you enjoy. At work, it could be calling a good friend or watching something inspiring. Outside of work, do hobbies, get engaged with hobbies, things that you've maybe always wanted to do. Now might be a good time to start doing it, and you don't know where it might take you. Just one word of caution though. When you come home after a stressful time at work, it's easy for you to just numb out, for you to find an escape. And that escape might not necessarily be good for you in the long term. It might feel good in the short term, but long term it might be to your disadvantage. So you want to be careful that you are not decompressing with something that's unhealthy. Okay, so remember to practice self-care constantly. The next tip, and this one I find quite interesting, is to type up your resignation letter. I had a colleague who used to do this. We both had this challenging manager. Whenever he would have a challenging episode with my manager, he would come back to his desk and just type up his resignation letter. Dear Abe, I've been waiting to say this for a long time. I quit. Now, I haven't personally done this, but I can imagine that it would relieve some stress. Just don't hit send. The next tip is to establish boundaries. Toxic people have a way of eroding your boundaries, and if you are not very clear on your boundaries, you would find yourself just redrawing and redefining those boundaries. I once had a manager who used to call me late at night, like at 10 p.m., 11 p.m., and I had to let him know that I wasn't going to be available at that time, right? And that stopped. Now, the thing with boundaries is that you need to be willing to live with the consequences, because it can go to your advantage or to your disadvantage. So basically, you want to be clear on, no matter what, I'm willing to live with the consequences if this happens, right? And for me then, it was, I don't want calls at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. at night. And boundaries can take on many forms. Other examples of boundaries could be, I will not get involved in office gossip. I will not stoop low. I will be respectful but assertive. I will not do emails after 9 p.m. Right? These are just some examples of boundaries. So you want to make sure that you set some boundaries and you're clear on those boundaries. The next tip is to document everything to the best of your ability. Now, I know this sucks, but you have to think of it this way. A toxic work environment is where trust is out the window. So you want to be able to cover your back as much as you can. So if somebody tells you, for example, to do something, see if you can have them send you an email so that that's on the record. If a decision was made, have it in writing so that it's on the record. I know it kind of sucks because you're spending time and energy in what seems like unnecessary work, but this is just what you have to do to protect yourself in a toxic work environment. A toxic environment is a low trust environment, so you want to ensure that you cover your back. And keeping track can be a good thing for you. If you think about it this way, if you go on interviews, for example, they're going to ask you to cite a situation where you brought value. So keeping track of the value that you bring could actually turn out to be a positive for you. The next tip is to build and nurture positive relationships at home and at work. Now, this is very important because you want to be able to balance or counter the negative relationships that you have at work. Some of us tend to recoil or retreat when we are in a challenging situation, but when you're in a toxic environment, you want to be very proactive with strengthening those bonds, those positive relationships that you have at work or at home. The next tip is to let your work speak for itself. In a toxic work environment, if people don't like you, but you're good at your job, they will respect you, even if they don't show it. So you want to keep your eye on the prize. At the end of the day, you're being paid to do a job. Challenge yourself to get better. What's your boss's number one goal? What's your boss's number one challenge, or your team's number one goal and challenge? Keep that in your line of sight and work on being better every day. The next tip is to have an exit plan. Life is short, and a lot of your time, a lot of your waking hours is spent at work. If you're miserable at work, start looking for opportunities elsewhere. If you've already started, make sure that you're working on the plan regularly. The fact that you're taking action should help you feel more empowered. The next tip is to remember that it is temporary. Either you would move on to something else, or the toxic people will go on to do other things. I was once in a situation whereby I had a manager who wanted to get me fired behind my back. His plan backfired, and he ended up leaving the company because he made a lot of enemies along the way. So just remember that no situation lasts forever, and before you know it, you'll be out of this bind and you would have stories to tell. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and feel free to share this video so that other people can benefit. And check out these other videos out here. See you in the next video.